Good afternoon and welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Don Shipman. So every 10 years, the federal government conducts a population count of everyone in the United States, known as the US Census. The information provides a snapshot of our nation, who we are, where we live, and so much more, really. Data from the census provides information on how the federal government allocates funds for a lot of different programs, including, say, healthcare, transportation, even education. So today on 22 News in Focus, we're going to be talking about why it's so important to participate in all of this. And joining me today is Patrick Beaudry, the Manager of Public Affairs for the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. So, thanks for coming on the program. I want to get into this because I think a lot of people get a little nervous about this.
Sure.
It is information that they sometimes deem as being private. So this all kind of started, though. The first U.S. Census started in 1790, a year after the inauguration of George Washington as president. And it's constitutionally mandated. So let's kind of go back to the early days of when it was first formed and why was it created?
Sure. To understand what's coming up this year, you kind of have to go a little schoolhouse rocks. And so in 1790, the founding fathers were really trying to understand how they wanted to distribute political power. And there were debates over land mass, over wealth, and ultimately they decided in a democratic republic what they wanted was to distribute it by population. And so you need a mechanism to understand not only what the population of the young republic was, but also where it was. And so the census was born.
Why is it done every 10 years, though?
So probably for practical reasons at first, right? You had European settlers moving further and further west. You had potential states joining the Union. And I think, frankly, just because it's such an overwhelming task to count, or at least aspire to count each American each year, and also to avoid switching up political districts, the electeds that hold them on the voters too frequently, they decided 10 years, and it's been 10 years ever since.
And then how does this differ from, say, the annual municipal census? Because that happens, like I said, every year.
Sure, I actually just got mine in the mail in the city of Holyoke, and that's really a means by which municipalities can have a more real-time understanding of their populations. It's also a way that they keep their active voter rolls timely and updated.
So then, why is it so important that this data is collected, and what is it used for specifically?
Totally. Put simply, it's political power and it's funding. And so from the funding standpoint,
I think the funding aspect is what people really think about too, because we're talking about education funding here.
It's huge. The figure that I continue to hear is $2,300 per person undercounted over 10 years. The thing that we need to always remember about the census is we live with these numbers, whether they're good numbers or bad numbers, for a decade to come. And so when you think about community development block grant funding, you think about the way that we fund highways and bridges, or even our local school districts. That's all based on state and federal formulas, and those formulas are based on the data we collect every 10 years.
How does a count determine the number of seats each state will have in the House of Representatives?
Sure, yeah. So the U.S. Senate, every state gets 2, regardless of population. But in the House of Representatives, it's a more reflective body of the population of the country at a given time. And so each state is entitled to 1 member of Congress, and in smaller states, that is all they have. It's an at-large member. But beyond that, they take the other 385 seats once the 50 are distributed out, and there is a formula they use to determine exactly where those seats go. And we've seen a trend of those seats leaving the Rust Belt, the Northeast and Midwest, and moving to the South and to the West. So for example, Massachusetts lost a congressional seat over the last 10 years from 10 to 9, because not only did we not lose population, we just did not grow as quickly as these southern and western states. So we're seeing projections that Rhode Island and New York may be losing seats, but larger states like Texas and Florida may be gaining 2 to 3.
What about on the congressional level, in state legislative districts, how they're drawn?
Yeah, so very similar process. So for example, the House of Representatives in Massachusetts on Beacon Hill, there's 160 members. And what they're going to do is ultimately take the full population as reported by the census at the end of the year, and they're going to divide it by 160, and they're going to go out there and have to redraw the maps to reflect those changes.
Are the stakes higher for smaller communities? And I guess I'm kind of comparing this to, say, here in Western Mass, comparing that to the eastern part of the state where the population is so much larger.
Right. Well, so I would say first, I think that right now Massachusetts is not projected to lose another congressional seat, and that's a very big deal for us. But in terms of having our more rural Western state legislative districts grow larger and larger, I think that it's not uncommon, but at the same time, just think about the logistical challenges of representing an additional 3-4 rural communities, having to get to know what their needs are and then represent them adequately on Beacon Hill. It's a challenge. It's a challenge just to travel over the district, and it's a challenge for school districts that are seeing population decline, but seeing that same overhead to run those schools.
Overall, what do you say to someone who is maybe a little apprehensive about filling it out?
Well, it matters, and it matters in the ways that we just went over, and I think that the other piece that we want to get out to the public is the fact that it's safe and it's very easy. We are not asking awfully intrusive questions. We're asking name, age, sex, ethnicity, and gender, and that's just about it. There's a couple additional questions for the head of the household to describe the dwelling that the household is, but beyond that, that's it.
And yet, still people are a little apprehensive even with just those questions. We're going to delve more into that in just a moment. We're going to continue our conversation once we return. You're watching 22 News in Focus. All right, we're back here now, 22 News in Focus, and today we are talking about the 2020 census with Patrick Beaudry, manager of the public affairs for the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. There's a lot of misinformation being shared about the census. People are concerned about scammers, for example, getting information, getting access to that vital information in our personal lives. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. First, let's talk about the actual census workers. And you brought this up during the break here that you wanted to explain, how these individuals get this job and what they have to do in order to get the job.
Right. So, as I mentioned during the break, obviously we can talk all day about the importance on the funding and the political representation, but people are still often finding themselves in a position where they don't feel safe divulging the information regardless of those important aspects. And so what I wanted to share was just the fact that Census Bureau workers actually have to take a lifetime oath to never divulge the information they learn when they work at the Bureau with anyone else. And they face very stiff financial penalties and even prison time for breaking those. And that includes law enforcement and other agencies that could threaten one's housing or status otherwise. And so I think that's really important for people to know.
I have a question about law enforcement in just a moment, but first let's kind of start with the beginning of this aspect. When does the actual census this year begin here locally?
Sure. So there's a couple of different operations aimed at different populations. And so in this upcoming month in February, there's going to be a big effort for group quarters, which are like prisons and on-campus college housing, group homes. And so you're going to have Census Bureau folks reaching directly out to the administrators of those types of housing and get that information directly. For most of us, it's going to be mid-March. We're going to receive a postcard in the mail. And for the first time in census history, that postcard is going to be inviting people to actually fill out the census online.
And that was going to be my next question, because what are the different ways people are going to be contacted and expected to complete the actual form itself?
Yeah, so you'll be given some sort of identifying number that you can punch in and go on, and that will kind of help move the process along. But the fact is, you don't need it to fill out the census online. If you lose it for whatever reason, or you think someone else tossed it, that's fine. And so that is going to be the bulk of how people are contacted, and that starts in mid-March. That said, there are identified census tracts that either have a historically low participation rate, where they might receive a paper questionnaire as well to kind of really encourage people to fill it out in any means they feel comfortable with.
And these are coming in the mail?
Yes.
What about the census workers that are going door to door? And I think that's another area where people might be a little wary.
Sure. So the door-to-door work really doesn't start until May. There's going to be a huge emphasis on getting this thing filled out either online or in paper version. And so The door-to-door folks that I think a lot of people associate the census with, they don't come in until the very end. And so for folks who don't want someone knocking on their door, the best advice I could give them is fill it out. Fill it out when you get it. And you're very likely not going to have someone on your door if you do.
And so when I want to jump to the part where someone comes to my house.
Sure. Yep.
So are they going to be asking me the questions there and then filling it out for me if they do come to my house?
Basically, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So they will have some sort of tablet with them, and what they will have importantly is a badge that identifies them as a U.S. Commerce employee. They will have their photo ID on it, a watermark, and there's actually a phone number you can call if you're not sure if that person on the door is a legit census taker, and you can sort that out.
Are non-citizens counted in the census?
Yes, and I'm really glad you asked that. So there was a lot of confusion. The Trump administration moved to not have them counted or to ask a question that would understand whether or not they were. The courts ultimately ruled that that is not the point of the census. The census is to understand how many people we have in this country right now and where. And so yes, all residents of the United States on April 1st, this is the snapshot for us to understand who's here.
So that information, for example, that we find out that there are so many people that are non-citizens here in this area or wherever, is that information ever shared with law enforcement?
No, like I said before, the Bureau, each and every member of the Bureau takes an oath to not divulge the information. It's against federal law to share it.
The information too is put into a database. Who has access to the database?
Right, so those same Bureau employees, and I think it's important to note that even when it's reported out by census tract rather than household. So there could be fear that perhaps you're an off-campus college student up in Amherst and maybe you're doubled up or tripled up and you're afraid your landlord is going to find out more people are in the house than they ought to be. That information at that level will never be reported out.
And that could be true too for just families in general who may be renting a home where there's supposed to be only maybe 4 people in the house, but there might be 6 people in that house.
Absolutely, and I think we hear a lot of that, for example, in Holyoke and Springfield with folks who are fleeing Puerto Rico because of the recent earthquakes, and they might be staying with family who might not necessarily be able to have long-term guests.
If those people are just visiting, though, how does that work? How do we make sure that maybe they're visiting short term and they're going to be going back to wherever they are from, for example?
Right.
How do we determine that?
So the rule is that you are supposed to be counted where you live most of the time.
Okay.
And the tiebreaker is where you are on April 1st.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. We're going to continue our conversation here and learn more about all of this. The lasting impacts, for example, a lot more to come right here on 22 News in Focus. Good afternoon once again. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we are talking about the 2020 census with Patrick Beaudry, the manager of public affairs for the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. It's going to take many months for the census to be complete, but once it is finished, the Bureau begins to compile all that data and make it available to many different uses, including determining state and federal representation, allocation of federal funding, and data that'll impact communities for the next decade. So we have some more questions here. What is being done on the local level and regional level to ensure that the most complete possible count of the Pioneer Valley residents is happening? So there's different, like you said, organizations and local levels that are working with the census to make sure that this happens.
Yeah. So the basic unit of census support outside of the Bureau is referred to as a complete count committee. And those can be organized at the local level, regional level, or statewide level. And so I'm obviously here today representing the Pioneer Valley Complete Count Committee, and we work within Hampden, Hampshire County.
How many people are employed, and are they employed locally?
So this is really a volunteer effort. This is agencies and organizations and local governments lending their support to this effort because they all recognize the importance of it. So you have caseworkers, you have folks running programming, you have town clerks, you have planning directors. They're all in on this because they all see some level of importance with their day-to-day work and their service to particularly hard-to-count communities that really makes this all worthwhile for us.
And that was going to be my next question. Are there particular communities that you're focusing in on to make sure that it's counted?
Yeah, so I would say by and large, the general public is pretty good about filling out the census. They need some reminding every 10 years why it matters and how to do it. But we see our suburban communities, people with education, people who follow the news tend to fill it out. And so we're able to hyper-focus on, again, what we refer to as hard-to-count communities. And for us in our region, that's immigrants, refugees, and residents who speak English as a second language. It means residents who are struggling with poverty. It means off-campus college students, so those who are not being counted by that Dean of Housing directly with the Bureau in February. It also means seniors and rural residents.
You mentioned all these different organizations here on the local level. So what are these organizations doing to make sure that it happens? Is it outreach? Is it literally going out to communities even before the census begins?
Yeah. So we were fortunate that there's been some funding already available, and so I know organizations like One Holyoke CDC, who already has an engagement team, has been able to secure some funding to have that team start to do that type of census education and public awareness work. They're also struggling right now at the census to meet their employment numbers. And I think that having jobs fairs for the census is a really powerful means of ensuring that you have good local people on the ground, so that person who might be knocking on your door in May is actually a familiar face.
And that was going to be, it kind of leads me to my next question here too. You mentioned English as a second language, making sure that there are census folks that can, that have no other languages.
Right.
Is that something that is thought of right from the start?
Yeah, so there actually has been identified census tracts that have a high language need, and so they will be receiving Spanish language information in the mail as well. But the census is going to provide up to 59, I think is the last total I saw, language guides. So they're not perfect translated questionnaires, but rather guides that explain in any given native language what the questions are that are being asked.
We mentioned too that some people are nervous about maybe people coming to their door. Is this a scam or whatnot? There's a number that people can call, and I want you to mention that too. And
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
also be posting that number when we post this to social media.
Yeah, do you want me to read it? Right
Yeah,
now?
why not?
Great.
Go ahead.
So if you're unclear if you're being scammed, I would encourage you to call 800-923-8282.
That's a good number to call if you have any questions. Meantime, the footage that you're seeing right now on the screen there, you can see census workers going door to door, but you also saw the form itself. How many pages is the actual form? Like when it comes in the mail, and how much time does it take to fill it out?
Yeah, so the census is incredibly straightforward information. Again, the head of the household is asked 9 questions, which include what type of dwelling the household is, and then name, age, sex, ethnicity, and race. And that's it. And then each subsequent household member is being asked the same questions with an additional question about their relationship to the rest of the household members.
And if this might sound really stupid to ask this question, but what does it mean to be head of household?
So it's really kind of a judgment call.
Okay.
It can be the first person who opens the mail.
Okay.
It could be the person who generally answers that type of stuff. But it's no official designation on our part.
Specific municipalities, how does the census data, help Holyoke, for example,
Exactly.
or the city
Yeah.
of Springfield directly?
Yeah. So
Maybe give me an example that people at home can say, okay, this community center or this entity is right around the corner from my house, and I can see that that's actually going to be impacted.
Well, so at the state level, Chapter 70 funding is how we fund our public education, and that's based on population formula. And so your school districts count on you to be counted in order to get every single dollar possible, which we know in our communities every dollar counts. So that's huge. Same with Chapter 90 at the state level, and that's for road and bridge repair.
And then, we mentioned education, you mentioned infrastructure, stuff like that. What about like businesses in general? Is that something that's even thought about?
So I think that businesses have a huge role to play in raising that awareness, and I'll admit it's an area that we need to grow. in the next couple months, but just even simply getting posters up in popular restaurants and stores, particularly in hard to count communities, having different promotions around the census can all go a long way. And so we're definitely going to be engaging. We're fortunate that we recently signed on Northampton Chamber of Commerce as a partner, and we're excited to kind of work our way through the rest of the valley and bring businesses on to help them understand that if we don't have a quality workforce through education, we don't have quality infrastructure, businesses are going to struggle.
I was going to say the business aspect of all of this is really that kind of trickle down effect, isn't it?
Yeah, it is setting the table for businesses to be able to do what they do best.
Okay, so we mentioned too that it's going to take months to compile all of this data once the data is received. Is there a place that the average person can go to look at that data?
Yeah, so actually, the Census Bureau itself has a pretty good website with a lot of information on there, and so you can visit that when it's available. PioneerValleyData.org is actually a local resource as well that we worked with local foundations recently to launch in the beginning of this year. And it's really taking the census data and compacting it and making it more accessible and usable for our local nonprofits, municipalities, journalists, and students.
All right. All right, we're going to have a final word after a short break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. We're back here now, 22 News in Focus. Today we've been talking about the upcoming 2020 census and how that data helps local, state, and federal governments make decisions based on population needs. This is the point in the program where we have the final word. I'm going to give it to you because you really wanted to reiterate one aspect of all of this.
Thank you, Don. I just want to say once again that regardless of the count that we produce through this complete count work, we will ultimately live with that number for 10 years. So please take the time, take that couple minutes, fill out your 9 questions, your 7 questions for your subsequent household members, and get it done.
All right, that's it for the program. Thank you so much for coming on.